Did an Air Force T-38A and Delta Airlines Airbus 319 nearly collide in DCA just a couple months after a very tragic mishap? We're going to take a look at a news report of Delta responding to that TARA and talk about possible causes and what that means.
3, 2, 1, flight toss.
So Flight Radar 24 is reporting a close call at DCA between a Delta A319 and U.S. Air Force T-38s. Delta Airlines crew reported receiving a traffic collision avoidance system resolution advisory, Tcas RA. Remember we talked about in the actual mishap between the Army helicopter and the American Airlines flight that they got a TA, which is traffic advisory, because the way Tcas works is it creates kind of like a virtual bubble around the aircraft, and it interrogates transponders around and creates a vector and says, is this aircraft going to be a threat to my aircraft? And if it is, it provides a resolution advisory saying you have to maneuver your aircraft in this direction, up, down, reduce vertical speed, reduce descent rate, etc., to avoid a collision. Sometimes it's just fly straight and level. The Tcas RA is mandatory to comply with, so an airliner that gets a Tcas RA must do that. In the Potomac accident, they only got a TA because RAs are inhibited below a certain altitude to prevent you from trying to maneuver in the landing environment. So this says Delta Flight 2983 was departing Washington for Minneapolis-St. Paul when a flight of 4 T-38s approached from opposite direction at a reported barometric altitude of 800 feet, GPS altitude 875 feet. Both flights continued to their destination without incident, which was first reported by CNN. That's the Air Force flight. That is the Delta flight. Delta 2983 departed runway 19 at 1916 Zulu time. At the same time, DO-61, the U.S. Air Force T-38s, were turning north on the east side of the Potomac as they prepared to directly overfly the Pentagon and Arlington National Cemetery for a planned funeral flyover, flyby. It is common for only one aircraft in multi-ship formation to broadcast ADS-B data. True. And T-38As, which is what this was, have mode S. So that should have been on. They were reporting they're on ADS-B. All this argument about ADS-B doesn't really matter. And this is why I keep saying this about the helicopter thing, because Tcas is what we're talking about here. And Tcas does not need ADS-B. Tcas uses mode 3 Charlie and mode S, which it appears the T-38A was squawking both. So they were talking to ATC at the time. Shortly after transitioning from DCA Tower to Potomac Departure Controller, Delta 2983 noted that they had received a Tcas RA and queried the controller if there had been an actual aircraft in the vicinity. According to audio captured by liveatc.net, the controller answered in the affirmative. So you can see they're flying over the Pentagon. 67-833. So these guys coming from Langley, that is the fighting first, I guess. That's the adversary air squadron. So Gonky and I used to fly Ad-Air T-38As, and those jets just scattered to the wind. Some of these jets went to Langley. Some of them went to other places. But these guys fly adversary air against the F-22. That's their entire job. The 319 continued in Minneapolis, arriving at 2140. They returned to Langley and landed about 1951. There is the data. There's the 319. There's a picture of the the Langley jet. Now, T-38A, no HUD, no Tcas. A T-38C would have a HUD, Tcas, new seats, etc. T-38A does not have its own Tcas system, so it did not get an RA or a TA. A C model does. And they were probably on iPads with Stratus pucks for ADS-B in, because that's how we used to fly. So AirNav Radar did a playback of this. All right, so you can see over here, this is our flight of 4. That's an American Airlines plane, and that is our DCA MSP jet. So that's about as close. I mean, were they ever in danger of hitting each other? No. But with the speeds that the T-38s were flying versus this aircraft climbing out. You can obviously see how Tcas might think that, and luckily ATC had it under control. But they continued on. I don't know who this guy is. Is this another jet rejoining the flight? Looks like, no, just a separate military aircraft. That's a closer pass to me, unless they are part of the same flight. But we can watch it one more time. There it is. Not really. They've got a vector away from each other, and that's the important thing. So, and what is it saying for this? It doesn't have an altitude for the MSB jet. So if this is accurate, I mean, I can see how it would cause that, especially out here, right? Because it's looking at these speeds and going, yep, this is going to be a potential collision. And you can see about right there is either where they were given a vector to pass behind, or they picked up the visual to pass behind. But obviously you're crossing the flight path of DCA with takeoffs going this direction. And this is where, I mean, this right here is where the mishap happened. So, you know, obviously this is something that's high emphasis and high concern, but as far as where they pass, it was not a near crash or anything like that, but could it have been? Possibly. But the system worked out. There you go. Newsweek is reporting for amplifying information. They're basically saying that the Delta pilot asked air traffic control, is there an actual aircraft 500 feet below? Remember, they were having issues with false Tcas alerts. We've talked about that on the Mover and Gonky show a couple weeks ago. But the controller said yes. We talked about this as well. 85 cases, 1,500 feet vertically, 200 feet laterally. So they were 500 feet below. So at 800 feet, that is what the T-38 was reporting. And so they were at 1,300 feet, 1,400 feet climbing out. So I don't know why I guess the Airbus was still pretty low on their climb out. But Senator Klobuchar says, unbelievably dangerous. Thank God people are safe. Why are your planes flying 500 feet below passenger jets? I mean, you can't blame the DOD for this because they were doing an approved flyover and they were being vectored by ATC and positive control, squawking all correct modes and codes. If anything, this is another process / control issue. But I personally think this is an issue with the systems not being compatible. Airliner Tcas doesn't know how to do the math on a fighter target. And so, you know, yes, they probably needed a lot more separation, but I don't think they were an imminent threat. But we don't have the audio prior to that for the T-38, if they were calling out traffic, if they had traffic in sight, et cetera. But the FAA said Delta Airlines 20983 was cleared for takeoff at Ronald Reagan Washington National at 3:15. 4 T-38s were inbound to Washington National. Remember, a flight of 4, you're not that maneuverable if you're flying close together in fingertip, because one can't do these Hayaka maneuvers or else it's the bomb burst. Delta received an onboard alert from another aircraft was nearby. Air traffic controllers issued corrective instructions to both aircraft. And I'm sure VAS Aviation will have the audio, and we'll talk about it on the Mover and Gonky show Monday night once we get the actual audio from it. But they are currently collecting information, if not launched an investigation. Nothing more important than safety of our customers. That's why the flight crew followed procedure. So everything worked as advertised. I know it's a sensitive subject, and people are going to be angry, and they're going to say, Mover, why are you blowing this off? I'm not blowing this off. I just, you know, when something bad happens, we often start looking for the next major mishap, or everything is a trend or something like that. I've had Tcas RAs and airliners. I've had Tcas RAs in the T-38C way back in the day. I've caused Tcas RAs of large aircraft, not airliners, but large heavies, especially tankers. And I know the system limitations. And sometimes that's what happens. Now, if the T-38 guys were at 800 feet on altitude, now remember, it is a steam gauge, old school cockpit. It is not a digital. There's no HUD. There's no autopilot. There's nothing. They're just hand flying. So could they have been off their assigned altitude? It's possible. Could they have been in the wrong piece of sky? It's possible. But if they were doing what they were supposed to be doing, and this was just a breakdown in communication of letting each other know, or not knowing the systems, because again, that sometimes the speeds cause these RAs because the system doesn't know how to do that math. But thankfully, everybody did what they were supposed to do. The system worked, and everybody will be safe moving forward. And this is just one more data point. You know, they were out doing the flyover. I don't know what the event was for, but they were out doing their flyover, and that's why they were there. They're Langley assigned T-38As doing a public affairs approved event, and that's it. They did what they had to do. So, but more information will probably come out. This is pretty fresh news, but let me know in the comments what you think. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.